Okay, so now we're going to find the derivative of tangent. Well, we've realized that the derivative of sine of x is cosine of x. And we've found that the derivative of cosine of x is negative sine of x. So then could we use sine and cosine to find the derivative of tangent and do it algebraically? I think so, because we know that, here, let me rewrite. So we know that tangent is the same as sine of x over cosine x. So couldn't we use our quotient rule to derive this derivative? Let's try. So we're going to use the quotient rule. So we're going to go low, so cosine of x times the derivative of sine of x, low d high minus high, so that's sine of x, times the derivative of the denominator, and then it's going to be all over the square of what's below. Now notice how I wrote the square. This is the same thing as cosine of x squared, but this is the more common way of writing cosine of x squared, because sometimes it gets confusing. Does this 2 mean the whole cosines being squared or just the x being squared? Okay, it's a little side note there. So now let's simplify and find derivatives. So cosine of x, derivative of sine of x, we know is cosine of x. So I have cosine of x times cosine of x. Minus, and then we have the sine of x, and the derivative of cosine x is negative sine of x. Oh, this is looking very interesting, isn't it? And then it's all over cosine squared of x. Okay. This is not a flexible whiteboard. This is a smart. I'm not going to be able to move this up, so I'm going to have to squish this in, folks. So I have cosine squared of x plus sine squared of x all over cosine squared of x. Well, does that numerator look familiar to you? Does that look like one of the properties you've learned in a previous course of your trig functions? Right, it's the Pythagorean identity. And so we know that cosine squared plus sine squared x is 1. So I get 1 over cosine squared of x. Well, 1 over cosine, that's secant, right? So the derivative of tangent is actually, whoa, why did that c get so big? Secant squared x. Sorry, that got wacky. The derivative of tangent is secant squared x. Crazy. Well, I'm not going to prove every single trig derivative, which you're probably glad for, but these are our derivatives of trig rules. So the ones we just talked about, the derivative of sine of x is cosine x, the derivative of cosine x is negative sine, and the derivative of tangent is secant squared x. Now, if you look at the other 3, you're going to notice some commonalities. Okay, and let's start here at the bottom. Derivative of tangent is secant squared. Well, the derivative of cotangent is negative cosecant squared. The derivative of cosine is, derivative of secant x is secant x tangent x. And then the derivative of cosecant is negative cosecant cotangent. So notice all of the cos here, cosecant, it's cosecant cotangent, and it's negative. Cotangent, it's negative cosecant squared, and it's negative. But secant is positive, and it's secant x tangent x. Okay, just some little patterns there to help you memorize these trig functions.